that phantom voices have been heard, including the cries of children and screams of agony, including general feelings of uneasiness. So that's horrific. Anytime that a crime is committed and children, are involved. The next place takes us to Warwickshire, England. We're going across the pond, folks. There was this man, and his name was Charles Walton, and it was said that this man was loved so much by the community. Well, apparently, he wasn't loved by everyone. On Valentine's Day in 1945, Walton was found with his throat slashed and his body secured to the ground with a pitchfork. Okay, that is horrible. And not only that, there had been a cross carved into his chest. Now, this, of course, was horrific and a violent, event. And it was quite out of the ordinary for this small English village. Now, what did emerge from a Scotland Yard investigation were persistent stories of witchcraft. Some people suspected Walton of being involved in the occult, and I guess that was because the cross was carved in his chest. Of course, this case has never been solved, and the rumors and stories still continue to this day about this horrific event. There have been persistent visits by curious tourists over the years, and even now, which has caused Walton to be in an unmarked grave because of all of this attention. Now, there's been all sorts of reports that's come from this area, including shadow people, uneasiness feeling, voices of chanting in the distance, and even the apparition of Walton himself. Very, very interesting. Now, this next case, it takes us to Columbine, Colorado. And on February 14th in 2000, there were these two high school sweethearts, Nicholas Kuzelman and Stephanie Grizzle. They were having lunch at a Subway sandwich shop a few blocks south of Columbine High School. Stephanie was actually waiting for Nicholas to finish closing up the shop so they could go out together. A few minutes after midnight on Valentine's Day, this was in the year 2000, a co-worker was passing by and they saw the lights were still on in the shop, so they checked in. They found Nicholas and Stephanie shot lying on the floor. Some witnesses did report that they saw a young man who walked away from the sub shop at the time that the two teenagers were killed. Of course, this case has gone cold. While many tips have been investigated, the murders of these two young people have not been solved. There have been reports in the area of phantom gunshots and reports of people claiming to see the apparition of Nicholas and Stephanie walking in the area. That is really sad. This next story brings us to Durham, North Carolina. And it was on Valentine's Day, 1971. There was this 19-year-old guy, his name was Jesse, and he picked up his girlfriend, and her name was Patricia. Okay, they had been dating for 3 years. The couple headed out to a Valentine's dance at Watts Hospital in Durham, where Patricia worked and studied. Now, after the dance, the couple walked back to Patricia's dormitory, and she signed out for the evening, noting as she would be back by the 1 a.m. curfew. However, they never returned. A short time later, a friend of Patricia's She actually found Jesse's car locked and parked at a lover's lane near what is now Hillendale Golf Course on Medford Road. The couple is believed to have been abducted from this area. Their bodies were found roughly 2 weeks later. A surveyor was working in the woods off Hall Street, and he thought he'd found a mannequin leg there under some leaves, when actually that's not what he found. He found the two teens, fully clothed, but they were covered in leaves. Jesse and Patricia, they laid together in the woods. What was so horrendous about this, their hands had been tied with a thick rope behind their backs, and they were tied to a tree, and the ropes were stretched tight and knotted around their necks. Although they were still tied to the tree trunk, their upper bodies had slumped over, so they laid side by side in the leaves. Now, a medical examiner, he had found that the two teens had actually been tortured by strangulation, and it looked like to the medical examiner as if the rope were loosened and retightened around their necks several times until they died. They suffered nearly identical injuries. Now, this too has been an unsolved mystery murder case. Many leads have been followed over the years, and two men who were suspect back in the early 70s continue to be viable suspects. However, only one of them is still alive and has yet to be charged. They wanted him to give fingerprint and DNA samples, and the guy that's still alive, and he refused, and he made them consult an attorney. Now, so there's been no charges in this case either. It has been reported in the area of where these two young people were murdered. Cries have been heard, strange lights appear, and the apparition of a female has been spotted. Now, is this female Patricia? Nobody knows for sure. This next case takes us to Atlanta, Georgia. And it involves a woman by the name of Stacy Shoick. And as it turns out, Stacy was having an affair, and she was plotting and planning to murder her husband. She stood to gain over $500,000 in insurance benefits upon the death of her husband, whose name was Richard. Now, everyone has made statements that Richard was a good man and very caring, and he even adopted Stacy's children from a previous marriage. This was the fifth marriage for Stacy, okay? So, she contacted her trainer at a local gym, who was referred to as Mr. Results. Yeah, okay. It was said that Stacy had a meeting with one of her friends and Mr. Results over lunch one day and was planning and plotting the murder of her husband, Richard. It also came to light, in the end of it all, that she was actually paying Mr. Results $10,000 to carry out the hit. So the plan was to lure Richard to an isolated area of a local park to exchange Valentine cards and or gifts on Valentine's Day in 2010. However, once Richard arrived, he found his Valentine gift to be a bullet to his head. How tragic of an incident this was. Sometime later, Stacy did become a suspect, and it was learned that she and two other folks planned the demise of her husband. She would be convicted, serving life without the possibility of parole for orchestrating the hit on her husband. However, she has never admitted to her involvement in this crime. And of course, the other two were also convicted and jailed. It has been reported In the area where the crime took place, very cold chills have been experienced where there is no breeze, the general feeling of uneasiness, and unusual balls of light in the area. All I can say is thank goodness they figured out her plot and all the perpetrators have been captured and they are in jail. What would have been better would have been if somebody got wind of this planning prior to that. Now, this next case takes us to DeKalb, Illinois. On Valentine's Day in 2008, a fella by the name of Stephen, he shot and killed 6 people and injured another 21 people at the Northern Illinois University in DeKalb, Illinois. After which he shot himself. It was the 5th deadliest university shooting in United States history at the Cole Hall campus at approximately 3:05 p.m. The school was placed on lockdown and students were advised to find, a secure location and to take cover. Stephen, who was wearing a black t-shirt with the words terrorists written across the chest over an image of an assault rifle, had 3 handguns on him with lots of ammunition. He was also carrying a 12-gauge shotgun that was concealed in a guitar case. He entered a large auditorium-style lecture hall, and he just opened fire into the crowd of students. It was found out that Stephen had stopped taking his psychiatric medication, making him somewhat erratic. And, of course, there was no convictions in the case as the perpetrator shot and killed himself as well. In the area of the school on the grounds, there have been reports of phantom gunshots, mysterious mists that appear out of nowhere, and sometimes general feeling of sadness, along with unexplained floating lights. And I find that truly horrific. And I think that sometimes people with serious mental conditions, they should actually be more monitored more closely on keeping them on their medications, or if the illness, the mental illness, is that serious for the public. I don't think they should be walking out on the street would they miss their medication dose. That right there is a scary situation. And I will tell you, when we come back from this short break that we're coming up on, we are going to talk about a little bit about gifts and such that you would give on Valentine's Day. And with all that Valentine's Day mayhem and madness, we will be right back after this short break with more Ghost Talk. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.